The following program is paid for by the friends and partners of Touching Lives.
So Solomon says to his son, he says, son, let me give you a couple of pieces of advice on how to handle people that don't like you, people that oppose you, people that say nasty things about you, people that do you wrong.
Teaching people everywhere who Jesus is and why they need Him. This is Touching Lives with James Merritt.
There are friends, there are foes, and there are fools. Now, I promise you, some of you are saying, yeah, I'm married to a fool. Okay, I get that. I want you to understand, everybody that you know falls into one of those categories, okay? They're friends, and we're going to talk about there's different level of friendships, but they're friends. They like you, you get along with them. They're foes, you don't like them, they don't like you. And then there are fools. Well, here's what Solomon taught his son, and this is what I want you to teach your children on how to relate to each one of these groups of people, because it's all about relationships, all right? First of all, Solomon says, teach your children to be loyal to their friends. Teach your kids to be loyal to their friends. Now, one of the things you learn as you leave the world of adulthood, childhood, and you go into adulthood, is you learn just how valuable true friendships really are. Do you know why friendships are really valuable? Because they're really rare. Now, I hate to burst your bubble, but I want to let you know a dirty little secret, including me, so I'm with you in this. Nobody, listen to me right now, nobody has as many friends as you think you do. Nobody. You don't have as many friends. If you were to list all your friends, some of them are really not your friends. Nobody has as many true friends as they think. However, it's impossible to overestimate the value of a true friend. Now, we all desire for our kids to make good friends. How do you do that? Well, the first thing you got to teach your kids is this. If you want to teach your kids how to have good friends, first thing you got to teach them is to be a good friend. Because Solomon goes on now to say this, we're in Proverbs 12, verse 26. He says, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads him astray. Now that word choose is a really interesting word. It is the word that was used of a man that bought property, a real estate agent. And whenever a man would go to buy property, he would always go out to the land, he would examine the land, he would investigate the land, because he was asking himself a question. Is this land worthy of my investment? Is this land worthy of my money? Is this a piece of property that I ought to buy? And what Solomon was saying was, son, when you decide who you're going to have as a friend, you need to investigate them. You need to explore them. You need to learn how to choose the right type of friends. Now, I'm saying something that some of you think let me back up. I'm not saying what some of you think I'm saying. Let me explain what I mean. First of all, you got to understand what Solomon meant by a friend, because there are actually different levels of friendships. I'll give you an example. Here's a good example. I've got what I would say to be a good number of friends in our church, but not all of you are on the same level of friendship, as some others, because the deepest level is intimate friendship. Matter of fact, Solomon refers to that kind of friend a few chapters later. He says this in Proverbs 18, verse 24. One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but he says, you know what? There is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. Here's what Solomon said. He said, we've all got friends, but we've got friends with little f's, and we've got friends with capital F's. What he meant by that was, there are capital F friends, and these are the people you put in your inner circle. If you can imagine concentric circles, right? So we've got some quote-unquote friends. They're out here more like acquaintances. Then we've got some friends, and they're more than acquaintances. Okay, we kind of know them. We might go out with them every now and then. But then there are these close friends. There's these intimate friends. He said, this is the kind of friend I'm talking about. These are your intimates. These are the people who you seek out for advice. These are the people that you go to for counsel. These are the people you know are a good influence on you. These are the people you would trust with your wife and you would trust with your life. Now, let me tell you what I'm not saying, because this is big. What I am not saying is this. You do not want to teach your children, never associate with kids who may not believe what you believe. Don't associate with kids who don't live exactly the way that we live. Don't associate with kids who don't dress exactly like we dress. Don't associate and be friends with kids who don't go to church. That is not what I'm saying. Let me tell you why. We're never going to reach people outside the church if we don't have friendships with people outside the church. We're never going to reach unchurched people if we don't build relationships and have them as friends, and neither will your kids. We must be building friendships. We must be building relationships with people who don't believe in the Lord, who don't believe the Bible, who don't hold the same political views, who don't believe what we believe and look like we look and think like we think. Here's the key. You want your kids to be friends with kids that possibly they can reach for the church and reach for Christ. You say, okay, then how do you navigate that? Here's how you do it. You make sure that that child understands if you're going to be a friend with him, if you're going to be a friend with her, that's fine. Under one condition. You're the one influencing them. They're not going to be the ones influencing you. That's the key. That's the number one rule. You've got to be the influencer because you've got to make sure that you teach your kids. I've told my kids this so many times. If you're not with the wrong person at the wrong place at the wrong time, you will not do the wrong thing. Now, I'll tell you something about friends. And if you're under the age of 18, I want you to know what I'm about to tell you. If you're under the age of 18, listen to this. Let me tell you why it's so important you be careful in the friends that you choose. Because your friends can get you into more trouble in an hour than you can get yourself into in a lifetime. I'm telling you. There are kids in jail today that would not be in jail today if they had not chosen the wrong kind of friends. So you need to teach your kids how to be a friend. You got to teach your kids how to choose a friend. Then you got to teach your kids how to keep a friend. Because remember what Solomon said? He said a real friend sticks closer than a brother. That word stick, interesting word. It's a medical term. It refers to how skin sticks to the bone. Now think about that. Solomon said, if you're going to be a real friend to somebody and they're going to be a real friend to you, you've got to have the understanding through thick and thin, good and bad, whether things are sweet or things are sour. I am going to stick to you because there's one thing that proves you've got a true friend. You tell me who you think your true friends are. Let me ask you this one question. Do you have even an ounce of doubt that if things go south in your life, if you screw up, if you make a big mistake, if you really do something you shouldn't do, will they stick by you? Doesn't necessarily they'll approve of what you did. Will they stick by you? Will they walk into your house when the whole world has just walked out? Because let me tell you something about my best friends that I know about my best friends. They never have an interest in being a prosecuting attorney for me. They want to be my defense attorney. Second thing, teach your kids to be loving to their foes. Be loving to their foes. Now, one of the things you need to teach your children, and you better teach them early, everybody makes enemies. Everybody makes enemies. Let me tell you something. I've been to funerals, and I've heard people say this. I've heard this probably 8 or 12 times. I don't know of an enemy this person had. You know what I always think to myself? You don't know everybody. You give me some time, I'll find one. Everybody in this room, listen, if you have convictions that you believe in and the courage to stand up for them, you're going to make enemies. If you take a stand for Jesus Christ in this day and age we live in, you're going to make enemies. If you stand up and dare to tell the truth, you're going to make enemies. The issue is not, are we going to make enemies? The issue is not, are people going to do us wrong? The issue is not, are people going to dislike us? The answer to that is yes, yes, and yes. The issue is, how are we going to respond to them? So Solomon says to his son, he says, son, let me give you a couple of pieces of advice on how to handle people that don't like you, people that oppose you, people that say nasty things about you, people that do you wrong. He said, number one, never go down to their level. Because that's the very first thing we're all tempted to do. When somebody hurts us, we want to hurt them back. Somebody says something bad about us, we want to say something bad about them back. We want to kind of get down, to their level. Well, here's another great piece of advice this king gave to his son. Here's what he said. Do not say, I'll pay you back for this wrong, because isn't that the first thing we want to say? Somebody does this wrong. What's the first thought that comes to our mind? I'll get you back. You just wait. I'm coming after you, right? I'll pay you back. He says, no, wait for the Lord. He'll avenge you. There are so many people today, their lives have been ruined. There are people sitting in this room right now. You're watching by TV or you're listening by a computer. This is you. Your life's a mess. Your life is a wreck. Your life is ruined. You know why it's been ruined? It's not been ruined by what somebody did to you. It's been ruined by the way you've responded. It's been ruined by the way you've acted. It's been ruined by the way you have reacted. Because there are some people, their entire life is built around, how can I pay this guy back? How can I make him pay? How can I make him sorry for what he or she did to me? And you know why that's really so sad? Because for the most part, it's an exercise in futility. Let me tell you why. Number one, most people who want to pay people back never get the chance to pay them back. That's why they get frustrated. They can't find a way to do it. Then, if they do get to pay them back, you know what they find out? They find out that the payback winds up costing more than the payback was worth. And then the third thing they find out too late is that even if you do pay them back, it doesn't take care of the hurt they did to you. It doesn't do anything to solve the bitterness in your heart. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what's even sadder than this. When you allow yourself to stoop to the level of a person who's done you wrong and you do wrong to them, you wind up doing something worse to yourself than the harm that they did to you. Here's why. If you've got any kind of conscience at all, any kind at all, when you stoop down to the level of the person who hurt you and then you hurt him or hurt them, you know what now? You know what's true about you now? Now, not only do you live with what they did to you, now you got to live with what you did to them. So it doesn't pay, it just absolutely doesn't work. You know, we've all heard that two wrongs don't make a right. Let me kind of tweak that a little bit. One wrong does not turn another wrong into a right, but here's what you'll find. As you uncover the layers of a response like this, it just gets worse and deeper, because if you're a follower of Jesus today, and I'm talking to somebody in this room, I don't know who you are, but you're bitter, you're upset, you're angry, the spouse walked out on you, somebody left you holding the bag, somebody turned their back on you, whatever it was, somebody betrayed you, you've never gotten over it, you're mad, you're angry, you're upset. You think, I know what my problem is bitterness. No, your problem's deeper than that. Your problem's not bitterness. Your problem is unbelief. So what do you mean? Well, let's listen to the last part of this verse. He said, wait for the Lord. Why? Wait for the Lord. He will avenge you. He will avenge you. See, there's only one who has the right to pay anyone back for a wrong, and there's only one who knows how to pay back in the right way, and that's God. And God makes a promise to us. He says, look, don't you say, I'll get you back. Don't you say, I'll pay you back. Let me tell you why God says, that's my job. I'll do that. You've got my word. Nobody that does wrong ever gets away with it. I'll take care of them. For every action, there's a reaction. I'll see to it. For every kick, there's a kickback. And I'll see to it. I'll take care of the person that did you wrong. You just trust me. So when somebody does us wrong, we automatically think, all right, I've got one job in life now to pay that person back. I've got one job in life to make sure that I've avenged myself. God says, no, that's not your job. Your job's not to pay them back. Your job is to trust them with me, so you can stay above their level, so you can keep your heart clean, so you can go to bed at night with a peaceful conscience knowing, well, maybe they did wrong to me, but I've not done wrong to them. Maybe they did what was wrong, but I did what was right. Because if you never go down to their level, if you stay on God's level, you kill them with kindness, you get a chance, you love them. Because listen to what Solomon says to his son now in Proverbs 25. And by the way, some of you are going to like part of this verse. He says, if your enemy is hungry, give him food to eat. Some of you don't like that. If he's thirsty, give him water to drink. You don't like that either, but you're going to love this part. In doing this, you'll heap burning coals on his head, and the Lord will reward you. And you say, nah, I'm into that. I like that part. I know some of you are thinking right now, man, there's nothing I'd love more than to put coals on his head and fry his brains like an Oscar Mayer wiener. I'm all into that. Well, here's the problem. That's not what that means. Sorry, it's not what that means, okay? So hang with me. Don't slam your Bible shut yet, just listen. Back in Bible days, the way that homes were heated, the way meals were cooked, was most everybody had what would look like kind of like an outdoor grill. And you would put coals under that grill, and that's how you'd heat food, and that's how you'd warm your house. Well, the problem was poor people would run low on coal, and they didn't have enough money just to go out and to buy coal. So what poor people would do is they would take containers and they would put them on their heads, and they would go to the homes of the wealthier people, who many of them lived in second-story homes. And what they would do is they would walk under the streets. They might make a noise, or they might even cry out the word coal or whatever to let people know they were there. They would walk under these windows, and these rich people would reach out their window, and they would put coals on the container on the top of that person's head. So at the end of his journey, he would arrive back to his house with this big pile of burning coals, so he could build a fire, he could cook his food, he could keep his family warm, and keep his house heated. So in other words, what Solomon was saying was, this was an act of generosity. This was an act of courtesy. And what he was telling his son was, look, son, when somebody does you wrong, you don't wrong them back. Teach your kids to be loyal to their friends. Teach your kids to be leery, or to be loving with their foes. All right, last thing. Teach your kids to be leery with fools. Now watch this. This is the most important part of the message. Solomon said, he said, you know, there are certain kinds of people that you need to teach your kids to handle with care. These are the people, by the way, let me tell you what a fool is. A fool is the kid that will get your kid in trouble. A fool is the quote-unquote friend that will get your child in trouble. They're called fools. As a matter of fact, it's interesting. Solomon actually uses 3 different Hebrew words for the word fool. One word refers to a hard-headed person who thinks, I don't need any advice. That's a fool. Another word refers to a thick-headed person who won't even listen to advice. He says, I don't even want to hear what you got to say. And then the third term refers to an empty-headed person. He'll listen to what your advice is, then he won't take it, and he'll turn around and do just the opposite, and he'll live a foolish lifestyle. Now, here's who a fool is. So when I tell you I'm going to use a term for a fool, then you know who he's talking about. A fool is what we call the wrong crowd. We've all warned our kids, don't hang out with the wrong crowd. What we call the wrong crowd, he calls fools. Now, do you know what makes the wrong crowd the wrong crowd? What makes the wrong crowd is they won't take advice from the right crowd. They won't listen. They think they've got it all to figure out. They're going to go their way. And these are people, and you know who they are. It doesn't take long. They're known out there. Your kids know who they are. The school teachers know who they are. The administrators know who they are. Many times the police know who they are. They are intent and they're bent on being at the wrong place, doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. They're not interested in pulling people up to a higher level. All they care about is pulling people down to a lower level. And Solomon says, a fool is someone who won't listen to godly advice. He won't learn godly counsel. He will not live according to godly wisdom. So what do you teach your kids? How do you teach your kids to respond to fools? All right, here's a piece of advice that Solomon gives. Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffer harm. In other words, Solomon said, there are certain people, certain kids, and by the way, none of this is going to work, parents, if you're not involved in the life of your kids. Okay, if your absentee dad and mom can't help you, you got to get involved. You got to kind of know what's going on. Solomon says there are certain kids, and your radar will go up, your antenna will go up, and these are the kids you're going to have to teach your kids. You just got to avoid that kid. You just cannot really develop a relationship with that kid. Because I used to tell my boys something all the time. I said, guys, only a fool hangs around with fools. Only a fool hangs around with fools. So to repeat something I said earlier in a different way, I used to tell my son something. In fact, I've said it to him. Joshua's back there. He'll tell you. I got sick of me telling this. I said, guys, look, living right's not that hard. It's not, you don't have to go to MIT or Georgia Tech. Well, not Georgia Tech. You don't have to go to MIT or University of Georgia. You don't have to go there to learn what I'm about to tell you. Living right is not that hard. If you're not in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person, you can't do the wrong thing. I cannot tell you how many pastors I've had to talk to in my ministry. I can't tell you. How many pastors blew it, lost their ministry, destroyed their reputation, killed their marriages, crushed their families, tore their church apart, not because they were evil or wicked, because they weren't. Not because this is what they intended to do. They didn't. It is because they are foolish. Every time I talk to these pastors, I find this is true 100% of the time. You know why they blew it? They were in the wrong place. At the wrong time, with the wrong person, that's why they did the wrong thing. That's why I told you before, I don't meet women alone. I don't go to lunch with women alone. I don't counsel women alone. Why? I'm not going to be in the wrong place at the wrong time with the wrong person that might tempt me to do the wrong thing. And there are times you're going to have to teach your kids, you just can't go into that relationship. You've got to drop that relationship. There was a man that called a telephone number one time. It was the wrong number, but he loved the message that he got. Here's what the recording said. I'm not available right now, but I thank you for caring enough to call. I'm making some changes in my life. Please leave a message after the beep. If I don't return your call, you're one of the changes. Sometimes you got to sit down with your child. Listen, they may not like it. They may not care it. They may think you're being hypersensitive. They maybe make you think you're being over-judgmental. That's okay. You've got an antenna they don't have. You've got a wisdom they don't have. You've got a sixth sense they don't have. And there may be times you got to say, you know what, you got to make a change here. You can't do this. Now, let me tell you why this is so important. We're going to be done. This is why this is so crucial. The reason why I titled my message, It's All About Relationships, is this. Relationships are so important, not just for earth. They're important for eternity. Because God's Word says our eternal destiny is going to be determined by whether or not we have a personal relationship with God through Jesus Christ. You can't even get into heaven without the right relationship. You know, it really is true. I can tell every one of you in this room whether you're going to heaven or not. It's all about not just who you know, but how well you know who you know. And the first thing and the most important thing we ought to be teaching our children is that the most important relationship you will ever have, son or daughter, is that personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Because when it comes to knowing God and loving God and spending eternity with God, it's all about a relationship with the Son of God, who, by the way, wants to have a relationship with us so badly, he leaves heaven, comes to earth, born of a virgin, lives a sinless life, dies on a cross, comes back from the dead. Why? So he could live in us. And we could have a relationship with him that is forever and ever and permanent and will never, ever end. So, here's what I'm saying to parents. And this is what I'm saying to grandparents. And I'm both of those now. If I could wrap all this series up, and I said, okay, there's one thing that these parents will do if I ask them to do it. They won't do 2 or 3 or 4, but they'll do one. Here's how I'd wrap this up. If you want to raise the kind of children that you can make sure you'll never have to go back there, lead your kids to have a personal, real, vibrant, number one relationship with Jesus Christ. And number 2, lead your children to learn how to shine their spiritual flashlight so they can lead other kids and teenagers to have a personal relationship as well. Because I want to tell you, I said this earlier in a message, and I won't say it again. It doesn't matter if we leave a better world for our children if we don't leave better children for our world. And when I talk about better kids, I'm not talking about smarter kids. I'm not talking about more successful kids. I'm not talking about more athletic kids. What I mean by better is kids who get it, kids who understand that the most important part about me is my relationship to the God that made me. And the most important job I'll ever have in this life is to make sure that my friends and people that I know have that same personal relationship as well. And if that happens, a revival will break out in this nation that the whole world cannot contain.
Stay tuned for a final word from Dr. Merritt.
Well, here at Touching Lives, we care deeply about the unborn because we believe God does. I firmly believe that God cares about every single member of your family, whether they're born or unborn, those that are alive or growing in the womb right now. Today, I'm very excited and proud to announce a new partnership between Touching Lives and a very specialized medical group called the Fetal Care Center in Dallas, Texas. The Fetal Care Center provides state-of-the-art medical care to babies while they're still in the womb. These preborn infants are facing life-threatening illnesses that require unique interventions. And the care they receive at the Fetal Care Center is, just to be honest, unbelievable and amazing.
To learn more about the life-saving work of the Dallas Fetal Foundation, visit touchinglives.org/DFF. That's touchinglives.org/DFF.
You know, today we talked about training our children to make wise choices when it comes to choosing friends, because the friends they choose will play a major role in the direction of their life. They've got to be willing to be a friend, and not just a friend, but a godly friend, in order to make not just a friend, but godly friends. And you've got to teach them that when they make a good friend, they must place high value on that relationship. And always know this: the most important relationship your children can ever have is a personal relationship with Jesus. The best friend they will ever have is to have a friendship with Jesus. By the way, that's true for you as well. In order for you to give the wisest counsel and instill godly wisdom in your children, you've got to know the God you're attempting to point them to. So if you don't know that God through Jesus Christ, right now pick up the phone and call us. It's a free call, 1-800-413-1131, so we can talk with you about how to take the greatest life-changing step you'll ever take. Well, this concludes our parenting series. Thanks for watching. God bless you as you parent your children. And I look forward to seeing you next week right here for another episode of Touching Lives.
Touching Lives, teaching people everywhere who Jesus is and why they need Him. This program is sponsored by Touching Lives Ministries and is made possible by the grace of God and your faithful prayers and gifts.